What's up? So I just got this new awesome microphone and it's time to try it out. I've been having a lot of ideas about this YouTube channel that I kind of started, and I think I want it to be something for me to reference back to my thoughts and feelings on what's been going on in my life. And I also am hoping that maybe I can put this out there to help some other people who are going through similar things, and then also to provide a perspective for those outside kind of looking in situation. So we're just going to see what happens with this, because I'm just going to try to be myself and be honest about how I think I'm feeling today. I want to talk a little bit about how I grew up and how I came to be where I'm at right now, and then what I'm thinking right now, and then we'll see what happens. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I was raised in the Mormon or LDS faith. Now, obviously, the church has gone through and said, no, we can't use Mormon anymore, but I don't care because I think that's silly. So I was raised Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormon, same thing in my mind. And I really enjoyed the religion growing up. I was very active. My parents were very active from a young age. My mom's whole family are members, and they've all grown up in the church. And my dad was a convert when he was in his early 20s. So they raised us, me and my siblings, in the church, and we were always very active. Even in my teenage years, I was one of the most active members in my family, in my opinion. I was 18 when my parents got divorced, and my dad told our family that he was leaving the church as well. And I remember giving him a really hard time and being like, why would you leave the church? The church is the best part of our life and everything. So I was a very devout member. And I even convinced my brother to go on a mission. And so, I want to put this out there because I've watched a lot of these ex-Mormon kind of stuff, and a lot of people, sometimes they were just never really into it. And so I want to put this out there for those people that were really into it, because it shatters you. When you feel like you don't know what to think or believe anymore. It's very, very difficult. So I was very devout. And then obviously when I was 18, my dad left the church, but I still, it bothered me. I didn't understand it, but I just kind of chose to ignore it because I didn't know what else to do. When I came here to college, I live in Idaho, and I came to BYU, Idaho to go to college, and I had a great experience there. And I met my husband there, who also grew up LDS and has, his parents raised him and all his siblings very LDS. I met him shortly after he served his LDS mission in Brazil, and pretty soon after we got married, really fast. And it's kind of a cultural thing in the church to, you either, when you turn 18, 19, you either go on a church LDS mission for girls a year and a half or men 2 years, or you get married. That's pretty much what is encouraged, and it's not necessarily something I agree with. I love my husband, and I'm so grateful that it worked out, but getting married quickly can pose a lot of problems when you don't feel like you really know someone. Anyway, so we got married really fast because we met in January, and we were married by August. And I was just barely 19 at the time. And so it was probably a year into our marriage that he expressed to me religious concerns. And it was really, really difficult when that happened, because I kind of wanted to be in denial, because growing up in this faith, the worst thing that can happen is someone you love goes astray or leaves the church. And I'm just going to say things as they come to me, because the thing is, growing up in the church is going to be different for everyone. And there are some things that are, quote, doctrine, and then there are some things that are just kind of culturally impressed upon you in the like Mormon culture. So like in the Mormon culture, I kind of felt growing up that if you're, if you leave the church, you're gonna become this really bad person, and you're gonna just be a negative influence on society. You're gonna become an alcoholic, or you're gonna be I don't know, just bad things, because it's like in your mind, how can there be morals without religion or without God? And anyway, so my husband started to have issues with the church, and started to voice those opinions to me. And he was always very, very respectful, which I'm grateful, because I know a lot of situations are not that way. But all of his questioning was very sincere. Like, he was like, I don't understand how A plus B equals C. And that kind of stuff. Like, I don't understand how God can say this, but God can also say this, according to our religion, or our religious texts and our religious leaders and stuff. So as he started to question things, um, I I guess I never really had. And so it just caught me off guard, and it was like, well, like, just pray about it, you just need to have more faith. You just need to go to church more. You just need to, you're not doing things right. And it wasn't really that long before he finally was just like done with the church altogether. And that, it just crushed me, because I remember thinking like I literally thought like, I did everything God wanted me to do in my mind. I did everything he asked of me. I went to seminary. I, went to this religious school, because BYU, Idaho, where I attended, it's a like Mormon college. I've always gone to the temple. I've always prayed and read my scriptures. I've always done the right things. And why would this happen to me? Like, why would God let this happen to me? And it was very much a victim mentality of like, I didn't know how to get around it. And I loved him so much. And so aside from the religious dispute, I didn't feel like our relationship was rocky in any other way. So I was worried, but I wanted to work it out. But then I started talking to my LDS friends about my concerns with him. And a lot of my LDS friends basically told me, like, you need to get a divorce, like, with what he's doing, like, he's gonna end up, like, cheating on you and stuff, and just all of these bad things. And that, like, really hurt me, because I'm like, I feel like my husband really loves me. I don't know why, it would jump from I'm leaving the church to he's cheating on me. Like, so that was really hard, but I felt strongly that I wanted to stay with him, and so I did. And, religion was a very, very difficult topic for us for a really long time, for years, really probably like 2 years. And we had even at one point considered divorce because of the difference in opinions, but it was promptly, I don't know, decided that it didn't matter, because we wanted to be together. We loved each other. We didn't want to let anything get in the way of that. And I'm so glad, because as we worked through that hard time, things got so much better. But when we were in the midst of things being so difficult, I didn't even want to talk to him about religion. I didn't want to tell him about any of my spiritual experiences, because I was afraid he would just kind of crap on them, because he was not thinking that, his view of God and everything had changed so much. So it was like, I felt like we couldn't even talk about certain things, and it was really, really difficult. But as I started to question him of like, well, if you don't think the Book of Mormon's true, well, why is that? And when I started to question him on these things, he actually had a lot of answers that he had researched. And as he told me those answers, I was kind of like, oh, okay, And so as those answers started to kind of pile up, I began to be very overwhelmed. And it was over pretty much this 2-year span that I kind of started feeling these doubts kind of boiling under my skin. But I didn't feel like I could voice them. I felt like even just expressing doubt would be wrong, and would cause God to be upset with me. Now, again, there's a difference between doctrine, culture, and our kind of self opinion of things. But I was feeling like doubting was a bad thing, and I was feeling like God would be upset with me. And so I just kind of, I would push it away, and I would just try not to think about it. Anyway, so as those doubts and everything started to pile up, it was February of this last year, of 2018. I was pregnant with my first son, and it was finally one day I was getting ready for church, and I just exploded, and I just started sobbing, and I was like, Jared, like, I don't know what's right anymore, I still believed the church was true, but I was feeling very conflicted because of all the information he had shared with me, and I was feeling conflicted about the nature of God. There's a lot of beliefs in our church that, about, how you're supposed to live your life and what is respectable to God. And I was realizing, as I saw Jared leave the church and be such a good person, I don't know, I just started to wonder if these expectations were really making sense. And especially as I had my first son, it made me realize, how important it is to be a good person regardless of your religion. So to elaborate, in February, I kind of started to break down, and I was feeling afraid. And I remember saying to him, I'm afraid that the church is true, and I'm afraid that it's not true. And both ideas equally scared me. And here's why. I was feeling like there were certain things that I just could not wrap my mind around God caring about. And I'm going to give some small examples, but I'm not going to go in depth. And again, if anyone's watching and you are Mormon and you love it, good for you. That's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. This is just me sharing my experience. So I started to think about how, like in our, what's called the Word of Wisdom, it talks about how you're not allowed to drink coffee or tea or things like that, or alcohol, drugs, and obviously you're going to be better off if you stay away from drugs and alcohol. But at the same time, I had a lot of friends growing up that were not LDS and that they did drink, and being around it, I don't know, I used to be scared of it, but then I realized, like, wait a second, this is not a big deal. Not everyone who drinks is an alcoholic. And in addition to that, thinking to myself, would God really care if someone drank tea or coffee? Like, is that really that big of a deal to God? Because if God is all loving, all compassionate, all understanding, why would that matter to him? So this is where I started to kind of come to this crossroads, and especially also dealing with gay marriage. Obviously with gay marriage becoming legal in, I think, 2015, that had been a big point of contention with a lot of church members. And it's a weird thing because there's a lot of church members that will say that they support it, but then but the religion doesn't support it. So it's weird. In my mind, I cannot come up with any reason as to why God would disapprove of a gay relationship. Now, again, this is just my opinion, because I feel like a child being adopted to a family with two dads has got to be a much better relationship, a much better situation than that child growing up in foster care or, without a family. And so, I think that there's a lot of research out there that says, that the best kids are raised in a mother and a father home. And I think that's great. But I also feel like if God made someone, quote, gay, then why would he expect that person to just be alone their entire life. And the church has a lot of stuff out there supporting, basically gay members who do not practice, So they're gay, but they just refrain from dating, basically. And I don't understand that, because I don't know. To me, it doesn't make sense. And again, I could be wrong, but I don't get why God would care. Like, if God is all about love and compassion and understanding, then why does he care who that love is directed at? I don't know. So all of these questions in my mind, on top of doing a lot of research about our church's history, and if you want a really good resource, if you're LDS or not LDS, Rough Stone Rolling, I'm forgetting the author's name, but it's Rough Stone Rolling. It's all about Joseph Smith and the beginnings of the church. And it's actually written by an LDS member, but it's really cool because he doesn't like downplay any of the kind of negative instances from the beginning of the church. So it's a great, pretty unbiased. I mean, me and my husband have read it together. My husband's like, well, it's kind of biased, but in my opinion, I think it's pretty unbiased. And especially being written by an LDS member, it's hard to find anything that unbiased. So it's a great resource for Mormons and non-Mormons to read more about our church's history. Anyway, so as I started to ask these questions about how God works and what God thinks and how God feels about certain things, and it's just and about these rules in our church, and then about church history that wasn't really adding up in the way that I was taught growing up, all of these things just kind of led me to pretty much the depths of depression because all of a sudden I felt like everything I knew growing up was just shattered. Like a good metaphor I feel like for me was like, it was like there was like this, if you imagine this like floating like jigsaw puzzle kind of thing, then is like I look at one part of it and I say, that doesn't look right. And I pull it out and then I'm like, wait, that doesn't look right either. And before I know it, my like belief system that was like on this pedestal just kind of was shattered on the floor in front of me. And so by the time my son was born, I was feeling very, very conflicted. So he was born in May. I was feeling very, very conflicted because I had realized that I wasn't sure what to believe, and I was afraid to believe either way. I was afraid to believe that the church was true because of the things I didn't agree with, like God caring about certain things. And I was afraid to believe that the church wasn't true because if our church isn't true, it was like I felt lost. Like, well, where is their truth? I don't know. So I'm going to have to pause right there and do another video because this is a long thing. But if you want to hear the rest of my story, click on to part 2. And if you have other things you're interested in, I'm really hoping to make this vlog not just about my journey, but other people's journeys. I want to get some other people to interview them about their experience with religion or spirituality, and just put some positive stuff out there to help support anyone who's looking for answers or help or community. So if you're interested in that, subscribe and like, and I'll see you guys soon.